Hello everybody, welcome to the webinar. We're going to talk about targets today, all things target tracking and target management in Salesforce. So we've got just over 70 people on the webinar. So good morning if you're in America, and good afternoon if you're in the UK, and wherever you happen to be, welcome to the webinar. So I'm your host, I'm Gary Smith. If you've participated in one of our webinars before, you'll know that I'm always joined by my illustrious colleague, Ben Affleck-Curry. Ben will be joining in a second. We've had a couple of people get in touch at the very last second, so they haven't registered, but they want to join. So Ben is just sorting that out. So I'm your host, I'm Gary Smith. So we're going to talk about targets and target tracking in Salesforce. Just a point of terminology before we dive in. I tend to use the word target, and I think Ben does as well. I tend to talk about targets and target. You may use the word quota or budget, or you may talk about hitting your number. It's the same thing. We're talking about a dollar target, a dollar value that you've got to achieve in close won sales over a period of time. I say a dollar value. That amount could be in sterling, or it could be in euros, or whatever currency you happen to be using. I know we've got quite a few companies on the call that use multi-currency, so it's an amount you've got to achieve through sales over a period of time. Target, quota, budget, etc. So let's dive in. When I think about targets, really, I think about three types of target. I think about historical targets, so last month, for example, or last quarter, or last year even. The year to date are all historical targets. I think about current targets, so what have we got to achieve this month or this quarter, and future targets, so what sales do we want to achieve next month or next quarter. And the easiest of those things, really, in many ways, are historical targets. It's fairly simple. We've got a target, we've got one revenue, and we can just compare the other one against the other. And if the one revenue is higher than the target, then happy days. If it's below the line, then we know we didn't hit the target. So that's pretty much simple enough. In terms of the current targets, there's an extra factor. So we've got the target amount, but at the time of recording this webinar, we're about a third of the way through November. So many companies will already have some won revenue for November. So that's shown in the green line there. But whether we'll hit our target in the current period is really a function of what have we won, but also what have we got in the pipeline. So do we have enough pipeline to meet the rest of the target for this month? When we talk about future targets, the target for next month, it's all about pipeline. We haven't won anything because we haven't got to next month yet. So it's really it leads the whole question of target tracking, I think, is inextricably bound up with the subject of pipeline coverage. It's the whole question of, do we have enough pipeline to meet the target? Is our pipeline big enough to meet the target? Well, obviously we need to know, well, how much pipeline is enough pipeline? And in many organizations still there's this concept of, well, the pipeline is going to be 3 times the target, or 5 times the target. 3 is probably the most common number I hear. The challenge with that is that it's not a particularly scientific number, is it? And what if we've got a pipeline this month that's 10 times the size of the target, but it's all in the very first stage of the sales cycle? So how does that fit into the 3 times the target? So it's not really an answer that 3 times the target it's not a particularly robust or scientific number that we can stand in front of the board and say, yeah, I'm confident we've got enough pipeline coverage to meet our target. We need to find other ways of doing that. And that rather begs the question, well, okay, how do you do that in Salesforce? Now, when I was a kid, when I was a child, I spent many happy hours looking for Wally in these type of diagrams, these type of cartoons. I think you call him Waldorf in North America, but it's the same thing. And I spend a lot of time hunting for Wally. If you want to reenact the same experience, try doing the same thing in Salesforce and looking for the target tab in Salesforce. If you're listening to this webinar and simultaneously looking at your Salesforce environment and thinking, where's the target tab, then stop now. It's there is no targets tab in Salesforce. So there is no tab called targets in Salesforce. So that obviously begs the question, well, how do you manage targets in Salesforce? And these are the way that some people have attempted to do it. I'm going to show you another way. I'm going to show you an extra way beyond this. But what I'm talking about here is what people do is in Lightning now you can use this the kind of quarterly performance goal tracker. You would think the kind of what you've won would be in green, but actually the green is the goal. This is what we've closed won so far this quarter. That's the outstanding pipeline in terms of at least 70% of the pipeline plus what we've won. So you can't drill down. I'm perfectly honest, I've never actually seen anybody using it, but it's one way that you could do it. Another way is to say, well, actually, again in Lightning, we can have a line on reports. So here's the one revenue for last month, and we can put a line onto the chart. Again, not terribly scientific. We've got to kind of manually set where the line goes. We can't vary it from one person to another. We've got to adjust it, and it still doesn't really answer that question of well, is there enough pipeline to meet our target? A kind of more popular way is to do this is to have a gauge. These are 3 different gauges: last month, this month, next month, and so on. More visually, it's an immediate indicator of whether there's enough of where we are. It's a good sort of immediate visual indicator. But again, it doesn't really give us any proper analysis. It's just the visual representation of that exact same report that we were looking at. And if you've tried doing this method, then you have to create a gauge for each salesperson. You have to create a gauge for the company or for the territory region, and you have to manually update the red, amber, and green parameters every month if the target varies. So it's a manually intensive way, and still not really giving us the level of analysis that we would want. So the other way that companies do it, the other way that companies can do it is the forecast tab.
Hi everyone, sorry about that. I just joined late actually.
Okay, we're sorted.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, definitely.
The forecast tab. I have been deploying Salesforce since 2003, and you might have heard me say this before. Actually, I can probably count on the fingers of one hand the number of times that I've deployed the forecast tab. If I'm honest, I wouldn't need that many fingers to count the number of times I've deployed it successfully. It's a confusing piece of functionality. It requires work and understanding from the salesperson and from the sales manager. In theory, it's quite sophisticated, but it's a challenging piece of functionality. And in my opinion, it's not even the best way to do a forecast in Salesforce. If you're interested in forecasts, if you look back at our webinar archive on YouTube, Ben and I ran a webinar some time ago now called, I think it was called Your Sales Forecast is Probably Wrong. So I've decided to run this webinar about it, and we talk a lot more there about forecasting in Salesforce. So the forecast tab is not really, I don't think is the answer either. So with all of that in mind, we set out to build the best way, to build an ideal way to track targets in Salesforce. And not only to create a better way, we absolutely wanted to create the best way to track sales against target in Salesforce. And it's not natural for an English person to be boastful about what they've achieved, but we think we have generally built the best way to track sales against target. In Salesforce, we call it the GSB Sales Target Tracker. It's on the App Exchange. You can see people have already, we only just launched it quite recently. We've already got some nice positive reviews. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you now. So let me dive back over to Salesforce. And we'll start by looking at one target. Let's take the target for one person. Let's take the target for this chap, Dave Apthorpe. Let's take his target. And we're looking at the target, Dave's target for the month of November this year. The way we do it, the kind of out of the box way we do this is to have monthly targets, because that's what the majority of companies do. If your targets are based on quarterly periods of time, or even an annual target, then kind of the two things really. One is we do have some people who we have got customized versions of this. Instead of monthly targets, we've got quarterly targets. But also kind of hold your question until we get to the dashboards, because you can see that we will roll it up to quarterly periods of time and annual periods of time as well. But this is Dave's target for the month of November this year, and you can see that this is Dave's target. He's got a target of $50,000. We are roughly a third of the way through the month, so he's had a good start. He's closed $18,000 worth of opportunities. So that's what he's achieved. That's what he's got in the bank so far. I'm pleased to say he's got a pipeline. Actually, his pipeline is bigger than his target. He's got a pipeline due to close this month, due to close in November, of 55K. So that's pretty good. Although his weighted pipeline is only 24,500, 24,500. That's his weighted pipeline. So overall, we expect Dave to achieve this figure here, 42,500, 42,500. That's what we expect him to achieve. Now, what's that number? That's the sum of what he's already won, so we can count that, and his weighted pipeline. So we're taking the weighted pipeline because we know he's got a bunch of deals due to close in November. We also know that he's not going to close all of those deals. So we're taking the weighted value. And the weighted value is the probability of each opportunity multiplied by the value, and that's how we're calculating the weighted value here. That's giving us this expected revenue figure here. And we can see Dave's got a bit of a problem in that he's got a shortfall of $7,500 against his target for November. And you can see here on the right-hand side, you can see those figures in percentages. He's achieved 36% of his target. His total pipeline is 110% of his target. That's the 50 and the 55. His weighted pipeline is 49%. And we expect him to achieve 85% of his pipeline, of his target. And you can see a visual representation of those numbers over here on this right-hand side of the graph. So the light blue color is Dave's target. That's the 50. That's what he's won in the green. That's his weighted value of the pipeline. So that's his short forecast shortfall. So you can see there that's where Dave's problem area is. Now, just knowing that information allows us to think, well, okay, what do we do? I mean, what do we do about that? And fundamentally, Dave's got a bit of a choice. First question is he hasn't got enough pipeline. So could he go and get more pipeline? Is it realistic to get more pipeline that will close in November? Now, if the typical sales cycle in Dave's company is 2 or 3 months, that may not be realistic. On the other hand, are there any existing customers where we could do an upgrade or an upsell or a cross-sell? What have we got where we could just go and get more pipeline? So only you know that within the context of your business. Now, if that's not possible, then probably we need to focus on, well, let's cut our losses. Let's close the deals we have got to minimize the impact. But in terms of pipeline, we might be better off looking at next month and future longer term pipeline. So it starts to give you that pipeline coverage information. And using that information, you can decide how you want to drive the sales strategy. In this case, for an individual salesperson, for Dave, but we'll look at how that information rolls up across the company as well. Before we do that, let's have a look at the chart underneath. Now, Ben, if you were looking at this gauge here, this shows the pipeline that Dave has got to close. This is where his pipeline is for this month in November. What would you deduce from that?
I mean, at the first look, you'd probably say a lot of his pipeline is in the early stages.
Absolutely.
Initially.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know, we've got this this chunk here. We've got just sort of getting on for half. He's still in the qualification stage. He's got a chunk in value proposition, and he's got roughly a quarter, only a quarter, that's in the negotiation stage. So my question is, Dave, do you have a bigger problem than actually first appears? Because we know you've got a shortfall, but we also know you've got a lot of early stage pipelines. So I'd want to drill into some of those opportunities, and I'd want to know, well, are they the right month, and what have we got to do to move those opportunities along to make sure that actually we don't have a bigger shortfall than first appears. So how do I do that? And in fact, where do these numbers come from? Because all of these numbers are calculated automatically. And they come from here. If I just scroll down the page a bit, you can see these opportunities here. So these are the opportunities that are contributing to those numbers. These are the opportunities that are linked to Dave's target for November and are generating this chart and the chart above. There are two reasons why these opportunities are linked to Dave's November target. The first is that they're all owned by Dave. And the second reason is that they all have a close date of November 2019. So what we're doing is we're rolling up automatically the value from these opportunities into these numbers here, and we're populating this management information as well. So if we were to change the owner of these opportunities, if we change the owner of one of them, then it would unhook from Dave's target and it would link to the new owner's target. If we change the close date, so we keep it as Dave, and we change the close date from November to December, for example, then it'll unhook from this target and go and link to the new relevant target. So that's happening automatically. So the key message really is it's painless for the salesperson to use. There's no extra work. Arguably, unlike the forecast tab, there's no extra work for the salesperson to undertake. That's happening automatically. Their job is to manage their pipeline, and then they've got this information at a management level and at an individual personal level as well.
I think now, Gary, might be a good time to just answer a couple of questions. We've had a few come in, but if we get a couple done now, we can maybe answer the rest at the end. Sure. Someone was just wondering if the app works in Classic.
Absolutely, yes. It's edition agnostic, and if we have time, I'll cut over to Classic and I'll just show you that as well. Yes, it does.
Yeah, sure. And the second question for now was, how do you calculate weighted pipeline?
So the weighted pipeline is on any one opportunity. If I just open up an opportunity, it's the probability, which in this case is 10%, and the stage, we know the stage, but it's really the probability multiplied by the value of the opportunity, which in this case is $2,500. One thing that people often forget, by the way, is that you can manually change that. So although it's linked to the stage, you can go in there and manually change the probability as well. So that's how we're calculating the expected revenue and the weighted pipeline.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks. I think that's it for now. Let's continue. We can cover the rest at the end.
Okay, great. Before we move away from this page, we're also, because we know in November how many deals, how many have been won, how many have been lost, how many are still in the pipeline, we can calculate the conversion rate. So we know in this particular case for November, so far Dave has won 3 and he's lost 3 actually. So that's easy for me to work out. I know that his win rate by the number of opportunities is 50%. That's that number there. His win rate by value is only 38%. So what we're doing there is taking the conversion rate by value as well as by record count. That implies that he's closed some of the lower value deals, actually. So we're fully taking, we can calculate the conversion rate as well. It doesn't happen very often, but there might be one or two companies listening who have volume-related targets as well. So you've got to achieve a certain number of opportunities in a month. I don't have those fields on the page layout here, but you absolutely can do that as well in the system without any other change. And just one other thing to say just before I move off this page. Here we're using the opportunity amount to roll up to these numbers. You can, without changing any of the code and so on, you can have another, if you've got a custom field that you use as being the key figure to compare against the target, you can roll those values up in the same way as well. There's just a couple of changes in the back end of the system that you need to do, but there's no code change, and you've got flexibility to do that. So just before I go and we look at the dashboard, some list views at the top here. So if you just quickly want to see next month's target or this month's target, there's an easy way to do that. And I won't particularly dwell on it, but we have a page for creating the targets. So obviously the targets need to get created in the first case. So we have a page to do that. I've only selected Dave there, but you can see that these are his targets for this year. We can go and change them. We can go and set the targets for future years and so on. So we have a Visualforce page to make it easy to create targets and to adjust targets. Let's go and have a look at the dashboard. So this is where we are pulling together the information for the sales team. Any of these charts, any of the underlying reports, you can modify them. If you have if your sales team is based on territory or region or whatever it might be, and you can take these charts and you can modify them to fit your own business. When we looked at Dave's target for this month, we saw he had a shortfall. Fortunately, when we look at the team as a whole, the situation is more positive. So that's the target for the team as a whole. That's what we've won already. That's the weighted pipeline, and that's our expected variance. So we've actually got a positive variance for this month, and we can go and look at that. We can drill down to the underlying report and see more information. We can see specifically who's ahead of target, who's behind target, and so on. We can also say, well, actually, let's look at the overall pipeline. We looked at this for Dave's individual target, but what does it look like for the team as a whole? And again, you can see that. You can see the breakdown of the pipeline. So those two charts are for this month. So that's the period that we're in at the moment. Charts below are for next month. So next month's not looking too bad. We've got a target there. We've got just about enough pipeline coverage. So going back to our question about, do we have enough pipeline? Well, yes, actually, we do have enough pipeline, so we could probably forecast a small positive variance for next month. So our job now is to go and close those deals out that we've already got, and you can see them there. And again, we've got some pipeline analysis going on there as well. What about those historical targets and future targets as well, for that matter? This is the year as a whole. So this is January to December. In this case, in this particular Salesforce environment, the calendar year and the fiscal year are the same, but this is running on fiscal year. It just happens to be from January here. But you can see month by month, we had a small positive variance in January. So again, we're getting immediate information on how we did month by month over the course of the year. So a slight negative in February, so on and so forth. We had a tough time in October. You can see we had quite a significant shortfall in October. November is looking much more positive, as we saw a second ago, and likewise November next month, we should finish the year strongly as well. So again, we can go down and drill into those months, month by month, and see that information in more detail. This month, so let's have a look at how each of those individual salespeople are faring this month. So actually, we've got two salespeople that are down on target. We've got James and Sarah. Sarah in particular is doing very well. Actually, maybe it's time to up her target, actually. So Sarah's having a good month. That's the figure for this month. And likewise, so we're listing out the same salespeople here and looking at how they're performing. Have they got enough pipeline for next month for each of those people? Conversion rates. We're tracking. We looked at Dave's conversion rates for November. That's how are we doing over the course of the year. You see the conversion rate by value. That's in the blue bar, and the conversion rate by record count. So July, for example, July was a good month because we closed a higher proportion of high value deals compared to the average. In August, it was the same. Perhaps in one or two of these other months, we closed a greater proportion of lower value deals. And we probably want to break that down, and we can see the individual conversion rates by specific salespeople. If you're interested in a quarter, same sort of thing. How are we doing over the quarter? How are we doing over the quarter as a whole? So we're rolling that information up. How are we doing by each salesperson over the quarter? As I say, any of these charts you can drill down and you can interrogate the information in more detail, as you see there. Somebody just asked about Classic. Hop over to Classic. And there's the Classic dashboard. So it looks like that. Obviously, we're more constrained in terms of the way we can lay out information on a Classic dashboard, but you get the idea. That's how it looks in the Classic dashboard, and we look at an individual sales target. So there's Dave's sales target for November. There is a small page layout assignment change you can make if you want to. That puts the inline charts below these numbers. So the two charts that we looked at on the lightning page, you can slip them in here on the page. But there you can see exactly the same sort of information. And the same principle applies. If we change the close date, we change the owner, then that opportunity will unhook and would go to the new rightful target. So we think that is the best way to track sales performance versus target in Salesforce, and we are addressing that. Not only how did we do, how are we doing this month, and do we have enough pipeline to hit our number for this month and next month, and so on and so forth. This is where you can find the app. As I say, we've had a number of good, some nice reviews about the app so far. There's a bunch of screenshots here, so please feel free to go and have a look at the screenshots. The price of the app is $12 per user per month, so that's where you can find the pricing information. To find the app on the App Exchange, there's a couple of things you can do. If you just type the word target into the app, then perhaps just in the GoToWebinar, you could just put a link, and maybe you can just quickly send everybody an email out just to make it easy for people to find the app on the App Exchange.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if you want to try it out, there's it's the usual process. You can click on the Get It Now button, and you can install it into either Sandbox or your production environment. Go ahead and set up some targets. By all means, get in touch, because we will help you. If you've got any questions or you just want a bit of help setting up the targets, so you can use that allocate target button to set up your targets. If you want to talk about it and just talk through the numbers and so on, do not hesitate to get in touch. You can install it into both Enterprise and Performance and Professional Edition. It will work in all three of those environments. So you know what to do. Click on the Get It Now button and give it a free trial. So, and if you do give...
Before we finish up, Gary, shall we just cover these last few questions? Sorry.
Yes, and all I was going to say, just by way of closing, Ben, was if you do give it a try, we would love you to write a review. These reviews are all from paying customers that have already bought it. So please add to that, because you know how much notice people take of reviews these days. So that would be great. So yes, Ben, fire away.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. Okay, there was a few final questions. The first one was, can you roll up fields other than the opportunity amount to the target?
Yes, you can. As I say, if you want to do that, just we can do it together. There's no change to make to the code, but you can absolutely roll up. If you use you have an MRR, monthly recurring revenue figure on the opportunity, you can do that. Or if you have some other custom field on the opportunity that calculates the value of the opportunity, and that's what you want to compare against the target. Yes, absolutely, you can do that. Get in touch and we'll help you do that together.
Yeah, definitely. The next one, what about linking revenue over time to targets? In other words, work schedules.
Good question. Interesting question. We have, is it at the bottom here? Maybe not. We have the product revenue schedules. Maybe it's, if I go into the overview page, that might be better. We have an app that allows you to schedule revenue over time much more effectively. It's this one here, product revenue schedules. That allows you to schedule revenue over time in a much more effective way than you can do with standard functionality. And one of the things you can do in that app is link the scheduled revenue, link the month by month scheduled revenue to a scheduled revenue target for each salesperson as well. So you can't directly do it in the Target Tracker app, but you absolutely can do it in the Product Revenue Schedules app. So by all means, go give that a try, have a look at the video, and you'll see how that works.
Yep, sure. And the final one for now, I believe, just jumping back to the dashboards, can the reports be modified?
Yes, you can, absolutely. So it's the usual process. Because this is like all App Exchange apps, this is the reports are part of what's called a managed package. So the way to do that is to go find the nearest report to what you want and just go ahead and save as, create a new version of the report. It'll be a mirror image of this. You're just cloning this report, and then you'll be able to modify that one, and you can modify it in all the usual ways based on opportunity fields or however you structure your sales territory in your particular organization.
Yeah, that's perfect. And just to confirm, another person did put a question in as well saying, will there be any some instructions on how to build these dashboards? All of these dashboards do come included pre-built with the app. So
yes, they do. So
no worries there.
Yeah. All of the reports and charts that I've covered there, they are all 100% included in the package. If, as I say, don't to use a very English phrase, don't faff about on your own too long. If you want to customize those reports and you want a bit of help doing that, then just get in touch with Ben and myself, and either I or one of the guys in the team will go through that with you personally, and we'll just help you. Don't sit there on your own trying to figure out how to do it. We will help you do it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's everything for now, Gary.
Perfect. Okay. Well, listen, thank you, Ben. Thanks for your help in organising the webinar. And everybody else, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. I hope that's been an informative way to help to understand just what your options are at the moment to track sales performance against target in Salesforce. And we've given you some insight as to what we believe is the best way to track sales against target in Salesforce. So please go ahead, have a look at the listing, take your trial, and as I say, do not hesitate to get in touch. Thanks very much indeed for now. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.